Pratt Center for Community to the Pratt Center for Community Development. Now we're all being recorded, so you all know that. For hosting us today, we are excited to share a lot of information with you in a fairly condensed period of time. And I'm pleased to be here with my colleague, David Craker, who is a data dissemination specialist at the Census Bureau, and my other colleague, Sarah Maleka, who will be helping to monitor the chat. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will share out copies of the presentation. That's it for our intro, and I give you back to Paula.
Thank you, Jolie. Yeah, and for the person in the chat, we will, yes, this is being recorded and it will be available for viewing at a later time. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. So during the two presentations, the first one by our partners at the Census and then the little mini demo that I'm doing, if you have questions that arise during those sessions, please enter them into the chat, and Sarah from the Census will be helping to monitor and answer those questions. But again, we'll do the live Q&A at the end of the hour, or at around 11:50. I think that's it for housekeeping. But before we actually get started, I wanted to do a quick icebreaker and a little poll, kind of a show of hands to sort of try to get a sense of who's in the room. I see that we have about nearly 50 participants, which is really exciting. So I'm going to shout out a few sectors, if you will, of the type of work that your organizations might be involved with. And if this is something, if what I shout out is something that your organization works on or addresses, could you react by, putting your thumbs up or a heart or whatever way you want to indicate. So let's see here. Direct social services. Who here today works for an organization that provides direct social services to New Yorkers? Oh, okay. I see a few thumbs up and celebratory emojis. Nice. I'm just scrolling through the participants right now. Okay. Housing. Anybody work on housing issues? Whether that's developing housing, working with tenants. Okay, I see a few thumbs up and affirmative emojis. Nice. Youth. Who works with youth? Ooh, more thumbs up. Very nice. Economic and/or workforce development. Who's representing those sectors? Okay, we've got a little representation of economic and workforce development orgs. Great. And the final one is immigration, immigrants. Who works for New Yorkers born abroad and their families? Okay, a few of you as well. If anyone wants to shout out what their mission is or what issue they work on, feel free, because I know those few categories that I shouted out do not encapsulate all of you. Healthcare policy, someone just put into the chat. Education, anyone work on educational issues? Nutrition and food insecurity, reproductive and sexual health, senior services, urban agriculture. Wow, this is exciting. I see that we have, a lot of important missions and topic areas represented today. Well, thank you for indulging me in that little icebreaker. And again, I'm excited to have you all here. Oh, someone else, medical care, direct care, senior services, organizing, homeless shelters, food insecurity. Great. Okay, I am now going to turn it over to Jolie and David so they can tell us about the census and its various data products.
Great,
And
Paula, thank
Jolie,
you.
you're going to start, right? Go ahead.
I'm going to start and you're driving.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Our main focus today will be the American Community Survey and how you can search a treasure trove of data through those results. We will also update you on the 2020 census and our upcoming data summit presentations, and also share how you can access our COVID-19 data hub. So whether you are a PhD in data, like Paula, or whether you are someone who's pretty new to accessing census data, we do think that by the end of this presentation and the end of this session, you will have a better handle on accessing all of the free resources that we provide. The first thing up, David, last slide, we wanted to thank everyone. We know that you represent a tremendously diverse array of organizations on this call, but many of you I recognize as our partners in the 2020 census, and many of you may have been our partners who the people on this call didn't work with, but we are so appreciative of your efforts. We could not have counted everyone once, only once, and in the right place without you. Next slide. As the largest statistical agency in the United States, the U.S. Census Bureau conducts over 130 surveys and programs. Of the three main censuses that we do, it's the decennial census, which we just went through and which we will give you more information about. We also do an economic census and a census of governments. Those two, economic and governments, are conducted every 5 years, ending in 2 and 7. So the next time they're being conducted is next year. Next slide. We conduct business not only on our behalf, but on behalf of other federal agencies. So for example, the American Housing Survey is conducted on behalf of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We do demographic surveys. We update the population every year with our annual population survey, in addition to a wide array of programs. But what we are going to focus on is definitely the American Community Survey, because that random sampling of the population will give you a very deep look into the entire country on a broad array of topics. Next slide, David. In terms of how data can help you, we're glad that you're here because it shows that you're interested in how data can help you. But data can help you in terms of accessing resources. It can help you in terms of better serving the communities that you work with. And the uses are endless. It can be an important teaching tool. And most importantly, in terms of the decennial census that's ongoing, it will determine the reallocation of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives and the reallocation of federal dollars for funding across our nation. Next slide. It will impact everything, as you may have well heard from many of our announcements. It will impact everything from the roads you walk on, to the classrooms where children go to school, to where the COVID-19 vaccine is distributed. There are many, many uses for census data, and we hope that you will soon be more confident in your use of it. Next slide. So in terms of the decennial census, we know everyone is very eager for information about what's next. Well, what's next is on April 30th, we will distribute the apportionment counts to the president. That means that the population counts in each state will be distributed on or by April 30th. If you're wondering how that will impact us, there's an amazing map on www.census.gov. If you go to the homepage, there's a new map that shows how apportionment has affected the nation in the past since 1900, but it also can show you the 2010 results and unfortunately how New York State lost seats in that apportionment count. In terms of future distribution of data, September 30th is when we will be releasing redistricting data. So we know it's a while to wait, but it's important that we are going through and making sure that all of our counts are accurate. The pandemic clearly slowed us down, and this release is coming at a later time than it was originally anticipated. Next slide. In terms of how you can learn more about those census results, we will be doing data summits. So those data summits are starting actually in mid-April. A schedule is coming out very soon. They're just confirming these sessions. You can see sessions listed, some of them which may particularly apply to the group that's on the call here, include census data for nonprofits, census data for older adults, data related to the American Housing Survey. And if you sign up for our newsletters, you will get more than enough information about these upcoming sessions, but we will make sure to share this out with Pratt and make sure that it all gets out to you. So it's coming your way. These will be free sessions. They will be recorded. But on this topic, if you feel that this session that we're going through is something that might be beneficial to others in your organization or agency, we will give you our contact information. Please let us know, and we are happy to do an individual demonstration for any organization that's interested in learning more about census data for their own purpose. Next slide. Our Statistics in Schools program is evergreen. For those of you in education, it's a wonderful resource at census.gov/schools. We will share this presentation so you'll have all of these links. In addition, on the next slide, our wonderful free maps we have available. So all I can say is get them while they're hot. I've been sending out boxes of 50 to schools across the city, and all you have to do is request them, and they're a wonderful teaching tool. They're beautiful double-sided wall maps. So we have about 10,000 of these, and we want to move them out the door. Next slide. On this slide, you see some information about the American Community Survey. This data wheel is available at the link below. And what you can see is a comparison of just a few of the topics in the American Community Survey and how they compare for New York State and the United States. Data from the American Community Survey is very popular in terms of being used for grant applications, for how we serve the most vulnerable in our communities, and for where people start new businesses. It is a random sampling. So when we talk about census versus survey, the census counts each individual unit. 140 million households were counted in the 2020 census. For a survey like the American Community Survey, we random sample 3.5 million households every year across the country. It's a moving picture of the population. Then we project data off of that sample to come to the whole. So it's two very different things, census versus survey. Next slide, David. So there are 18 pages in the American Community Survey and 72 questions. They cover a broad array of topics, and we have field representatives who follow up. So for those of you who wonder, is the Census Bureau ever going to knock on my door in between the decennial census? It is possible. You can answer online, by phone, or with a field representative. And it's incredibly important when you're thinking about the people that you serve and the diverse populations that I know that are served by people on this call, that you encourage people to complete Census Bureau surveys, because it's really important that we are able to gather data from a cross-section of the population, both geographically, socioeconomically, and that will give us the most accurate picture moving forward. So please encourage people to complete, whether it's the American Community Survey or the American Housing Survey or any other survey which we send out. Next slide. You can also verify on the Census Bureau website if you're in a Census Bureau survey. So now I'm going to hand this over to my colleague, David, who is going to lead you through more slides and through a live demonstration. There you go, David.
Sure. Thanks, Jolie. So I'm going to try to move through this really, really quickly so that I can just get to our website and show people how to find data. But as we're thinking about the American Community Surveys, which is what I'm really going to show today, these are the main topics that we have. And so what this really means is that, for example, on the left here, it says social, it says ancestry. I'm going to show you what are called data profile tables. And when we go into those, these are like the Walmarts of tables. They have a lot of information about many things. So social is one of those tables that I would go into. But if you were to take one of the titles like ancestry or citizenship or disability or fertility, and just take that word and pop it in to the system and look for that, you would find that there are all these little subtables that are really intricate and have all sorts of data about them. And so you could really dig deeper into the topic. So something to keep in mind. But notice that we do have social information, demographics, economic, and housing. And so when we ask in the American Community Survey, the 72 questions, 24 of those questions are actually about the housing units themselves. So just so that we understand here, what we do is at the Census Bureau, we have two strains of data for ACS. We have 5-year data, which means it's an average over the past 5 years. And after that 5th year, we release the data to the public. So we don't do that every 5 years. We do it every December. It just means that it's data that was accrued over the past 5 years and then averaged out. So anything under 65,000 people in population, you're going to have to look for 5-year data. If it's over 65,000 people in population, so for example, a community district in New York City or Manhattan or Kings County or Queens County, you would look for 1-year data. That means that our sample is large enough and you can find that data every year. And that data is released in September. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Right down here at the bottom, you see MOE, that means margin of error. We always publish the margin of error, and it helps guide you whether you really do want to use that little piece of data or not. We get those margins of error because not everybody answers every question on the form, and it sort of leads to this peculiarity. So I will skip that one. And I just want to point this out. I will try to show you 2 types of geographies today that you can get data for. You can get it at the tract level, and a tract is sort of like kind of like a sub neighborhood that you can get something at. And Census Bureau, the first tracts ever that were invented in the country or developed in the country were actually done in southern Manhattan, and that was at the urging of the Federation of Churches. That was in 1910. And then 1940, we went nationwide with tracts. They're all over the country. This is not a tract map here. These are what we call public use microdata area, meaning PUMA. These are areas that are over 100,000 people. And it isn't meaningful to many people in the rest of the country, but for people in New York City, very, very meaningful because the City of New York Population Division have aligned the PUMAs to the community boards or community districts. And so you can see here, we have, for example, I'm indicating here CD3, Community District 3. It used to have a number, now we give it a name. So it used to be called PUMA number 3809. Now it's called New York City PUMA, I think, Community Board 3. So I'm going to show you how to get that data today. Microdata means that there's more data. You can dig deeper into it, but it is a bigger area geographically. And so that means we have a larger sample. And that's what allows us to go into that microdata. So I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to share my screen again and go right in here to, I can find it, sorry. Hold on, if everyone just cross your fingers. And let me get there really quick. Okay, there we go, all right. And actually, I think what I need to do is, yeah, okay. So now I should be able to. Sorry about this. I'm trying to get this one. I'm on one single computer. I don't have one monitor, but I will do it. Okay. And here we go. Should be able to. I'm going to do it this way. All right. All right. So you probably, I don't know what you see here. Can somebody tell me?
Your Zoom page.
Okay. All right. So now do you see Explore
Yes,
Census Data? Okay, good.
yes.
All right. So this is the main portal that you're going to go into if you're looking for data from the Census Bureau, and whether it's going to be right now, we're looking at American Community Survey data, and we would be looking at the year 2019. And I always tell people, go right to advanced search. It just makes your life so much easier. The other thing though, this will be the portal where we put that redistricting data in September, okay? And you will look for 2020 data, and you will go down to the block level or tract level if you want to. And my understanding is that this will also be an embargoed site. So some people for a day or two will have access to the data, and then after that, it goes public. So over here, here's what we have, advanced data. I'm going over here to the left, and I tell people, go to your year first, okay? We are always a couple years behind. So we are now in 2021. The most current data that we have up here is 2019, okay? So you're going to check on 2019, something that's the year. Notice everything else is now out of reach. You can't get it. We've popped the filter down here, the bottom left. It's like a chip, if you can see that. And then the next thing we can do is we can go to a topic, or we can go to geography, or even a survey if we want to. But I will go to geography. And I could certainly show you county if I wanted to, or the state. That's pretty easy, or a zip code. But today I'm actually going to, and I like to use this little switch here, I'll turn that on. And some people like this numbering scheme over here, but I just know if I'm going for the Puma that it's way down here in the 700s. And this is just something very convenient for people living in New York City. A little bit further down here in the 700s. Let's see if we can find it. Keep going, keep going, keep going. I know it's here. There it is. Okay, Pumas. And then I'm coming over here, and I'm going to go to New York City, New York State rather. And then from there, we can look for things. And so a little hint here, you could go scroll through this and look for all the Pumas in the state. It's listed by state, or you can come to this little magnifying glass right here and just put in NYC. Okay, and when you put in NYC, it gives you all the Pumas or the community districts for New York. You can scroll through and look for them. And here's one right here, Manhattan. And if you really wanted to narrow it down a little bit more, you could do this. Like that, and it finds the ones in Manhattan. So let's just look at one of them. District number 3, we will look at that today. So it's popped down here, okay? And we have the year, and we are now, we can say search if we want to, right? Or we can come back over here to the left, and we can say topics or surveys if we want to go that route, okay? And I will just say surveys really quickly, ACS 1-year data. And I like to look at this data profile right there. It gives you a lot of information. And then I'll say search. And so it's sort of telling me that there are 4 tables available. And there's also sort of a compendium up here if you wanted to click on that. And it has selected various things for you. But I will just show you something here, economic characteristics. Let's look at that really quickly. And so this is what a table will look like when you get it. Okay, it starts to have all sorts of information. If you can see employment status, who's in the civilian workforce, how much, who's commuting to work, how they're commuting to work, their occupation that they're in, the industry that they're in, the class of worker, their income breakouts right there, right? Keeps going on and on, families, non-family members, health insurance. And remember, notice health insurance is in capital letters. That means you can actually sort of highlight that or just remember the word health insurance, and you can go back in the topics and look for that, and it will give you actually more information. So I like to say you're actually window shopping right now. This is just saying, okay, this is what I want, but these are my other windows over here. And maybe I didn't want economic characteristics up here. Maybe I want social characteristics. And so you can click on the left and it will change this for you. It changes the topic or the table, and you can go through and you can look at that and see if there are things that you like. I'm going to open this window up here. I click on customize table. I just want to show you that table. We always give you an estimate, a margin of error, and in these data profile tables, so up here at the top in the middle, notice where my cursor is, it says DP2, that means data profile number 2. We always give you percentages, okay? And so as you start to scroll down, you start to see percentages for school enrollment, educational attainment, that sorts of thing. Don't worry, sometimes you don't see everything at the top on the top list. That's because we're just giving you the totals up here, the raw totals, and there is no percentage yet. So keep that in mind. You can download it right now if you want to into CSV. You do get a little bit more information if it's in a CSV file, meaning not meaning the data, but you get more metadata with it. However, if you're an Excel person, you can come here and you can download as Excel. One little caveat I will tell you, you can manipulate this table before you download it into Excel. So if you turn off the margin of error and you download into Excel, that is what you get. What you see is what you get, right? It won't be the same if you download, okay? So it will be kind of different. So keep that in mind. If this isn't what you want and you want to change up what you've looked at, you can come back over here to this census logo in the upper left, and you click on that, and it brings you back all the way to home, and you can say advanced search. And so I showed you how to find one geography, right? But we can change that a little bit. We can come back here to geography. Oh, or what did I say to look for first? Year, right? So 2019, geography. And so we could do a couple of different things. So we could come back to the Pumas, which is right here, and we could select many Pumas if we wanted to do that, or we could come back to census tract, which I mentioned before. And let's see if we can find that. Here it is, census tract right there. And we can come down here to New York. And so you kind of have to know what you're looking for. And we might say that we're looking for Manhattan, or it's also known as New York County. And you could say that you're looking for a single tract in New York County, or you could say you're looking for all census tracts in New York County. And it's loading. And sometimes if it's too much, it might not load, but let's just see what we get here. We say search. And so began loading things for me. Now notice I did not define what I wanted. I said I wanted 2019 and all census tracts, but I did not filter it out, okay? And that is something I could do or not do. I could leave it like this and I could look to see what's over here, or I could come back to my little, see the word filter here? You could come back to filter and you could say, okay, well, I'm going to filter this way, or we could sort of fool around with it a little, and wherever you see the little symbol like this, that's a filter or a magnifying glass, you can put in the word. So remember, I had brought your attention to health insurance before. I put that in there and it starts looking for me, and it does find that there is a category in there. Now, if you go looking for something that we don't have categorized, it's not going to find it for you, most likely. Okay, so the PowerPoint that we showed that had those breakouts, you probably want to use one of those words, but sometimes it will find other things in there. So I click on health insurance, I come up to the upper right, I say search, and it now finds all the tables for my parameters about health insurance, right? So we can look at any of these: public health insurance, selected characteristic of health insurance coverage. I will just click on one of them. I don't know what's in the table, and that's one thing that I urge you to do, is kind of explore these tables and see what's going on. Now, it should be a really big table. So like I say, cross your fingers, here it comes. It is for every tract, and usually the first one or two tracts are what we call water tracts. So we're not actually going to look at track number 1. I believe track number 1 is, believe it or not, it's probably Ellis Island and Liberty Island. So I am going to see if we can get this. Yeah, get rid of that.
David, can you
Yeah.
show the map? We have about 5 minutes.
Oh,
Actually,
sure.
we have less.
Sure.
We have less time. We have a few minutes. We have 3 minutes until we hand back over to Paula. So I'm
Okay.
thinking maybe you can show how you select off the map.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, let me open the table. And I want people to see the table first, Julie. So I want them to see that this is about health insurance, right? And then who has health, the total number. And we can actually bring this over. And I will just pull that in. Okay, so then you start to see some numbers, right? And you see who has health insurance, where they're from, do they have disabilities, educational attainment, employment, work experience with health insurance, their income with health insurance, the ratio of income to poverty with health insurance. So you see all those sorts of things. And what Jolie's referring to is if I click on this little map up here, those census tracts with the first variable in that table, it will map it for you. And it's trying to, it's saying no data at the moment. Oh, here it comes. It will take a while. And I will tell you, this thing has good days and bad days. And so don't think it's you. But what it is doing here is showing us, it took the first variable, just the non-institutionalized, but we can come up here where it has total. And we can say, okay, well, I want people with health insurance, living arrangements, and maybe we come down here with a disability, okay? And I click on that, and it will change up the map for me, and it starts to show me where people have disabilities, and you kind of need to pay attention to your table though, okay? And look at what you want, but it's showing you where you have more of something. And these are all the census tracts around Manhattan, okay? And if you want to just read one of them, you can click on the select. You can click on that tract and it will open it. It should open it. There it is. And it will give you the full number if you wanted to do that. Or, you can say, okay, tract number 44, I want to zero in on that. And you can go back and in the original portal, you can say, I just want to start looking at track number 44 to see what's going on there. So you can certainly do that. I've barely touched the surface of this portal today and the data. And I realize we're going to pass the baton over to somebody else. I do want to let you know, this is 2019 data. The 2020 data will start being released, not just for ACS, but for the decennial in September or by the end of September, little by little, and then more data is released in December, okay? So that would be the 2020 data. I know you're gonna show the other portal for New York City. I think they're usually a year behind us with their data, but maybe you can clarify. So I will stop sharing and let the next presenter move on.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Jolie, for that great overview of the census and the ACS, the American Community Survey. Now we are going to pivot, and I'm going to spend a few minutes showing you guys the New York City Population FactFinder. So let me share my screen. Here we go. Okay, can people see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the New York City Population FactFinder is a really cool free online mapping and data tool. It was created by the New York City Department of City Planning, and it provides a lot of similar information to what we were just shown, but it's New York City centric, and it really allows you to really define your geography or define your study area at a very pretty micro level and customizable level. So let's jump in. Okay, So, the first thing that you want to do again is to define your geography. And I am going to do that by, first of all, I'm going to turn on advanced, excuse me, options over here on the left. And it really just has a lot of layers to turn on that can give your map some context, that can help you select your geography or just understand the neighborhood that you're looking at. So you'll see things like thematic maps, which are, again, a lot of census data that just, shows up for the whole city. You can map the subway lines to give you, that transportation infrastructure context. And then there are various other boundaries here that you can turn on. So I'm going to turn on the neighborhood tabulation areas. And I'm going to choose, I'm interested in the neighborhood of Bushwick in Brooklyn. So I'm going to select them. So these, these two neighborhood tabulation areas together kind of comprise the neighborhood of Bushwick, but I kind of want to be more customized. So let's say I'm really interested in the residential area of Bushwick. I know that north of Flushing Avenue is largely industrial. So I really want to customize my geographic area so that it really represents the residential area of Bushwick. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to turn on census tracts up here. And now I have those two neighborhood tabulation areas divided into census tracts. Let's see here. Now I'm going to clear the selection so that I can customize my selection, right? As I was saying, I'm going to exclude the census tracts in this area that are north of Flushing Avenue. So I can go one by one, right, and select them within this area that I was showing before. But a quicker way to do it, if I want, is I can go back here to the left and I can draw a polygon. And that allows me to, pluck in these circles that help me draw this polygon to quickly kind of grab all these census tracts, and define my study area. And in that process, I erased some, so I'm going to select these. Okay, so basically now I have my geographic area of Bushwick that excludes this, this northern industrial area. So now I want to check out, the data. Before we actually check out the data that describes this area, I also want to show you quickly that you can search by, in this address locator bar here on the upper left, you can search your location by address and then select some areas around that address. You can enter the names of institutions, like I entered CUNY before. And it showed me a CUNY campus over here on the lower west side of Manhattan. So there are many ways to hone into your geographic area. Okay, but back to this geographic area of Bushwick that I'm interested in. Now I'm going to click here on View Profile. And it generates, again, this customized, aggregated census and ACS profile of this area of Bushwick that I'm interested in. Let me back up for a moment. So this tool doesn't have all the past years of census and ACS data like the tool that David was sharing. What this tool contains is the American Community Survey data for 2014 to 2018. But you can also click here on this toggle and see change over time, which is really nice. So when you have that toggle turned on, you're going to see a comparison between 2006 to 2010 data versus 2014 to 2018. So clicking back to this, current snapshot, which is 2014 to 2018, if I, scroll down, I see all sorts of data about the age of the population, the sex, race, Latino origin, and the like. And then I switch over to here, and kind of like how David showed us, here's a big category called social. It's regenerating. And it also has a drop-down menu, so I can get very specific and quickly hone in on which social attribute I'm interested in. Here is the whole set of economic indicators, some of which David indicated or showed us in his demonstration. Here are housing indicators, including the year that the structure was built, whether the population rents or owns their housing, occupants per room, mortgage status, and many other indicators. And then this final column is census, which again is that 100% count of the total population. So as you can imagine, the 2020 data isn't released yet. So this tool shows the 2010 census profile. Another really cool feature, right, is this notion of being able to compare your data. So, data can tell a story, but it gets even more powerful if you can compare your data either over time or to a different geography. So let me show you an example of that. Right now, the default, so again, my interest area of residential Brooklyn, residential Bushwick is shown here on the left. By default, the geographic comparison is New York City, this column here in the center. But if I go up here, I can change it and compare my interest area of Bushwick to Brooklyn, to other neighborhoods throughout the city, and to other boroughs if I want. So that is very useful. I'm going to just click here on Brooklyn. It'll regenerate. And again, now this middle column shows me the comparative statistics for the borough of Brooklyn, in which, of course, Bushwick is located.
Paula, this is David. Can I interrupt?
Oh, please do. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing that is different about this that I like this is all those geographies, all those areas that you've selected. It has how can I say it, coalesced them? I mean, it's like giving you one number for the whole area.
Yes,
Whereas
yes.
if you do that for the Census Bureau, it's not going to do that. At our website, everything's going to be its own thing, and we don't, I don't know how the word for it, but yeah, aggregate it all together. Whereas this does that for you.
Yes, thank you for pointing out that difference, David. So just to point out the other comparison that I alluded to before, right? There's a comparing change over time. So if I click on that, then again, I have one column for my area that shows the statistic for 2006 to 2010, that 5-year average. And then the second column is the 5-year average for 2014 to 2018. And it gives you the difference both in percentage and in number. One way to share data that you've aggregated and collected is simply by clicking on your URL and copying and pasting that, and that makes it very easy to share with others. You can also download the data, clicking on this rectangle right here, and it will give you a CSV file, comma separated values that you can then import into Excel. So that is my whirlwind tour of New York City Population FactFinder. I really encourage you guys to play with it. It really is quite intuitive. But that being said, if during the course of playing with it, if you have any questions, you should definitely feel free to reach out to me, and I can try to help you through that. My email is pcrespo@prattcenter.net. But I will be sending that around. No need to note that down now because I will send it around when I share the presentation with you. So now we can open it up to a live Q&A. We have 9 minutes officially left in our allotted time, and we are happy to open it up to questions.
Hey Paula, this is Lila from United Neighborhood House of New York. And my question is, if I want to find, for example, a young adult ages 18 to 24 who voted and who also responded to census. I want to find the relationship between people who voted and people who took the census. How would I do that? Like number of young people.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, but I don't think that is included in the census or in the ACS, right? David and Jolie, can you confirm that? Do you know of other sources of voting data and census participation data?
Well, for census, for voting, we do keep those statistics at the Census Bureau. We have another part of our website that has it. It is not in this portal, but I believe it's only done like at a county level, and it's usually like a year behind. Okay, and those are statistics that are just reported to us by each state, and we post it on our website. But we do have that. I don't know if I can find it right now, but we do have it, but it is usually like a year late by the time we get it, we post it up there. So there was another
David, why don't we, maybe we can send, we'll send Paula the link so that we can send that out after. But I'm thinking in terms of the census response rates, I believe while we have that by, we've reached a 99.9% response rate to the census. In terms of the breakdown, do we want to show the 2020 census.gov response rate map? I'm not sure if that will get you.
Yeah, I don't know where that is.
Okay, let's see.
But I think you mean by response rate, you mean mail response rate or the self-response rate.
Right, in terms of self-response rate, we can get you to where you can see the self-response rate. I'm not sure how granular you're looking to go, but I'll send those links. I don't want to. Let's see if I can pull something up. Let's go to the next. Let's see if anyone else has a question, and then we'll circle back.
Jolie, there's a question in the chat from Lauren about congressional and community district overlap.
Yeah, I'll try to answer that. Let's see. I believe that's possible. Oh, wait, congressional. I'm not sure if congressional districts are on the FactFinder. Let me check.
Yeah, we do have it on our data portal. One of the advantages of the New York City FactFinder is that you can turn on layers and overlap them. And we used to have that advantage on our portal, but now you can only do one layer at a time. But we do have congressional versus what was it, community districts. You can flip back and forth.
Someone asked in the chat in the New York City Population FactFinder, what does it mean if the numbers are grayed out? Great question. It means that you probably should ignore them because they are not statistically significant.
Yeah.
And also in the chat, Sarah from the census shared the link to the citizen voting age population map.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. And here I just pulled up the census self-response rate by state. You can also drill down into county and city. So if we selected, for example, hopefully you're seeing this now.
Yep.
For whatever reason, it's not happy right now. But Layla, you would be able to go in and you would be able to select you could see the response rate by state or drill down further.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a pretty nice map.
Yeah, I just want to elaborate. That is a self-response. That means the number of people who either did it, by email, on the computer, on the internet, or they mailed back the form. This does not include the amount of people we voted. Whatever the remaining percentage is, up to 100%. People we visited rather.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We had to visit their households and enumerate them.
Right. So the number bumps up to 99.9, but people look carefully at these self-response rates because self-response is the most accurate way to respond. And that could be self-response online, by phone, or by mail. So hopefully that's
And-
helpful. And
Yeah, and let me,
Mhm.
I know we're past the census, but some people went in and self-responded and did not give a valid address. They didn't pay a lot of attention, or they gave a good address with the wrong zip code. And those, because those turn out to not be real addresses, they don't turn up in this self-response number. And so the Census Bureau has to follow up on that. They either do research and eventually it comes into self-response, or then they have to, or we have to go visit their household and figure out what's going on. So that did have, there was a percentage of people who responded with not quite the correct address. And some of that's just that they used their home address and they got mixed up with where they worked and they put in the wrong zip code. So, anyway, so what I'm really saying is a self-response really a little bit higher than what you saw there, but some of it was incorrect. And then we had to figure out how to go visit them or get the right information.
Thank you, everyone.
Sure. Other questions that people want to shout out? Keep in mind that, of course, as you start to, experiment with these tools, if you haven't already, that as questions come up, that you can reach out to us. And again, we will be sending out our contact info after the session.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Jolie and I didn't really have time, but we do have there is the ACS website you can go to, and you can look under data, and there's something called a narrative profile. And that's kind of a nice alternative to looking at these tables of data. You can go in and you can, I think, look for your zip code or your tract or your county. I don't know if Pumas are in there, but you can look for that and you can get what's called a narrative. And it's like, what your high school English teacher would prefer to look at, and it's like written out really nicely and you can read it. And a lot of people prefer to see that over one of these tables of data. So that exists as well.
David, can you pull one of those up? I feel like we could do that quickly. I don't know why I was having trouble with my screen being so responsive, but
okay, you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so usually go to Jolie. What's the shortcut? ACS narrative profile.
I just search in Google census narrative profile.
The link is in the chat for that.
Okay. All right, so we'll just
there
go here. There it is. So it's census.gov/ACS is how you get here, really. And so you can come here, you can look for a place or a census tract or a zip code. So let's look at a zip code, and we can go to state. So you always sort of have to drill down with census things, unfortunately. And then we say choose a zip code. So let's see, 10005, that's the one where I used to work. Get a narrative profile, and you click on that, and it takes about, 20 seconds to turn away. And
even less, David, 5 seconds.
Even less. I need to learn quick riddles or jokes to tell during this. So anyway, here it is, household, but it selects it for you. You don't get to select it, but a lot of people love this. And so it's the data is actually written out for you. And I think, Jolie, can you right click and print and it comes out okay? I can't remember.
Well, what you can do is you can, next to the bar graphs, you can see it says view data in table format. So you can click on any of those and the data will come down. It's easy to print, and there are 15 different topics covered here. Everything from the employment status to, I personally like the how people commute to work table. You can also see at the very end of it, you'll see how the population spreads, similar to what you see on the Population FactFinder, and also the how much internet access is in a particular area.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
SNAP
that.
access as well. Yeah.
This is kind of cool. And then the internet, that's at the very end?
It's at the very end, and I think that's a statistic that a lot of people have been looking closely at, especially during COVID.
Yeah.
you know, when we're concerned about educational access to remote programming and school at this point.
Yeah.
There's definitely, you know, this particular zip code is pretty high, but there are definitely other ones in the city where you see it's much lower.
Yeah, no, this is good. This is what I think people use in Wikipedia. I think they copy this and put it into Wikipedia sometimes. So,
well, also, if you were doing a grant application, I always say that you could easily snip and paste this right into your application. It's nice that the tables are done for you.
yeah, yeah. And then, you know, if this is, you can come right back up here and change your geography. So if that's kind of not what you want, you click on that button and it brings you right back here, and you can look at things again. Yeah, I don't even know, like county. If we were looking at the county and we're in New York State, we're right here. And then we come down here and this is, actually I'll take Bronx County, and you could just, you know, get your narrative that way. So you can, it lets you, you know, flip around a little bit. So we have a meeting with the people from ACS once a month, and so I'm always like pushing them to put more into this narrative profile. I mean, not more narrative, but more geography options, you know, like a Puma or township things and stuff like that. So, but anyway, this is just for Bronx County, and you can go through and you can read the narrative if you wanted to do it that way. So,
Paula and David, I know we're reaching the end of our time. I want to show one last thing, if we can, which is this brand new map that came out that I think, with apportionment coming up, will be something that is useful to people. If you go to the homepage of census.gov, David, it's a brand new product, and right on the homepage in the middle, you see this interactive apportionment map.
want to click on it?
Yeah, as of April 30th, you'll see the results will come up for the 2020 apportionment counts, and that will be a very interesting thing to see, because we'll see the shift in you'll be able to see the shift in representation. So what you see now in 2010, where the map is red and orange are where states lost seats, and where it's blue is where states gained seats. So this is a really interesting map, and something you can look at in terms of population and also representation based on the population. So right now the average is 710,000 in population per representative.
Yeah, and I think Sarah said something today that some of these graphics are not working today, right? These I think these are from Tableau, some of these things, and I think they're not all, the visualizations are not totally working correctly today. So notice it's spinning, and it's not quite getting there. So
Hey, David.
Yeah.
So there's a question in the chat. How can we find out what are the top job industries in a specific borough? And Jay, who asked the question, I imagine you mean jobs that are actually located in the borough, or the jobs that people in a borough have?
Yeah, through the ACS, it would be the jobs that people have. We're actually asking people what industry they work in, but we're surveying them at their home.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that that's
where they
what's
work.
their right. We do have something called Census Business Builder, and that helps. It's another website, and it's through the economic census or survey, and it sort of has more a reading on different industries in different counties and zip codes. Okay, it can't be broken down beyond that. Like you can't really do it by census tract or our community board, but you can do it by zip code, and you can do it by
county and borough.
County. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what part of the economic census is that? Can you repeat that, David?
Well, that's the economic census. And let me just see if I can find it here, www. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is not my level. I didn't come prepared for this today. But anyway, But here it is, the economic census right there, right? And this will give you information about that when you get there, right? But there should be something here called Business Builder. If it's not here, there's another way to get to it. Yeah, let me see. Okay, so another way, this is our website, right? Census.gov, right? You can always come over here to explore data and then data tools and apps. And we have tons of things here. So it's not just what I showed today, but we're looking for something called Census Business Builder. It's almost the first one. And then when you get here, you're going to, I believe normally we're telling people to go to regional analyst or whichever one you want to go to. And you can, it will open a mapping tool for you. And then you can start to analyze. It's not opening it for me. There it is. You can analyze by county or zip code. And you can kind of look at the area, it gives you a little bit of ACS data. And it's not, doesn't seem to be coming up, but normally it would be. But it also gives you about industry. If you're looking for a certain type of industry, I think you have to know what you're looking for, but you can look for that. And then it will tell you how many are owned by females. Like you can go here, like food services, and then it will have some subcategories that you can go to, like bars, like that, number of establishment. But I think if you go to find my, let me go to where I live. Load 0707. That one.
So
Sorry
I
about that.
I just want to say while David looks for that zip code that obviously we've reached the end of our time, but if people have an appetite, we are available to hang out for longer and answer any questions. But I just want to thank everyone for spending the last hour with us. I hope you got something out of it and hope that you might join some of our future trainings. So thank you. But again, feel free to stay on. Yeah, actually, David, Jay clarified his question that he's actually interested in the jobs that people have, regardless of where that job is located. And Jay, at least in the New York City FactFinder, if you go under economic, here, maybe let me share my screen.
Yeah, you want to show yours? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So if you click on the economic profile, you can see employment status, how long it takes for people to get to work, the occupation that they have, and the industry in which they work, and other, job related indicators as well. So you would find that in the economic.
It is there, the industry that they work in. You can get that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the same thing that we're going to have, I think, because you're pulling from our data, except we're a year different.
Yeah. I'm scanning the chat for more questions. Oh, someone asked me the name of the tool that I was showing, and it's called the New York City Population FactFinder. Again, I'll share a link to it. It's obviously easy to Google, but I will share a link to it in my follow-up email.
Yeah, and the New York City Population FactFinder, Joel Alvarez told me it always pops up beta version at the beginning. He said just ignore that and keep going.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Any other questions that people want to, excuse me, shout out or put in the chat or raise your hand?
Paula, there was one question we missed in the chat. Somebody asked, do we know yet the negative impacts of the previous administration's efforts to undermine the decennial census? Question from Gaspar Caro.
Jolie, David, any insight or thoughts on that?
You want me to answer that, Jolie?
Well, what we can tell you is that there was a presidential proclamation that came out in January where we effectively discontinued many of the requests that were made by the previous administration. So that's something that you can access online. Requests related to citizenship and other data were discontinued. At the same time, we do report on citizenship data. That's something that we do access. You can access through the American Community Survey. You can see native versus foreign born. You could see a breakdown of population by race and ethnicity, which actually is often helpful for people who are looking to target services to specific populations. In terms of the results of the 2020 census, I think we are taking a lot of extra time in order to do whatever we can to make sure that the results are as complete and accurate as possible. So there's a lot of work that's being done on that data file, which is why the results were not released in as expedited a way as had been requested by the last administration. So that's about what I can say, and the data will be released as of. Thank you, Sarah. The data, Sarah just put a link to that presidential order. The data will be released as of end of September for redistricting purposes, and I think that's data that people are eagerly looking forward to seeing.
I'll just add my 2 cents here, Jolie. Okay, so this is my 3rd census that I've worked through, and I know I was sort of not in the thick of it like you were, but I still kind of was. And what I would say is, the Census Bureau is pretty used to all these things happening every 10 years, that somebody pulls the money, or we have like a group of cities that say, don't participate, our mayor says this. So we're pretty used to all the, I don't know how to say it, like the backroom politics. And the Census Bureau is sort of like this scientifically fine oiled machine that just keeps going and going and kind of knows how to navigate around many of these things. And so I would say that this was not much different than the past censuses that I worked in. The only thing that was different was the pandemic, and I think that has some impact, whereas, you know, people are leaving the city and moving elsewhere. So that possibly might change things. But I think the politics of it, we're very used to these sorts of things happening, and we just sort of know how to we always have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay.
Last call for more questions. Okay, well, thank you again. Thank you to David and Jolie and Sarah, and thank you to all of you who joined us today. Bye.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.